The wineglass trembles. Khari notices it first. The way the crystal stem vibrates against white linen, sending tiny ripples across the Merlot's surface. Not from his hand. From the table itself. From the weight of footsteps crossing Italian marble 50 feet away. He sits across from Dominic Ashford, the man who owns half the warehouses along the Brooklyn waterfront and all the silence that comes with them. The kind of man whose name makes loan officers check their calendars twice before scheduling meetings. The kind whose reputation arrives in a room 3 minutes before he does. Reshaping conversations, straightening spines, making people remember appointments they suddenly have elsewhere. Khari's family business, Taiwo and Sons Import Company, has exactly 47 days before the final payment comes due. 47 days before his father loses the shipping contracts that kept 3 generations fed. His older sister Amara arranged this dinner, told him to smile, to nod, to pretend gratitude tastes better than it does. She'd stood in her tiny apartment kitchen 2 nights ago, still wearing her hospital scrubs, and laid it out like a medical diagnosis. Dominic Ashford doesn't meet with just anyone. He's interested in the textile routes Dad built. This could save us. But you have to make a good impression. Why me? Khari had asked. Because Dad's too proud and I'm too tired. And because you're good at making people feel comfortable. She'd paused then, something sad flickering across her face. Or you used to be. Before Riven. Your father should have sent someone with authority. Dominic says now, swirling bourbon that costs more than Khari's rent. But I suppose desperate men make desperate choices. The insult lands soft but precise. Khari's fingers tighten on his water glass. He forces them to relax, counts to 5, breathes through his nose the way his therapist taught him before he couldn't afford therapy anymore. My sister Amara handles the business operations, Khari says carefully, but she's working a double shift at the hospital tonight. I'm here representing our family's interests. Are you? Dominic's eyes are the color of good scotch held up to light, amber with something darker underneath. And what are your qualifications, Mr. Taiwo? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. The chandeliers hum overhead, a frequency Khari feels in his back molars. Every alpha in this room wears their pheromones like cologne, cedarwood, gunpowder, old leather, tobacco, and something chemical that might be expensive aftershave or might be dominance made tangible. It stacks in layers until breathing becomes a conscious act. Khari learned years ago to catalog these things, to notice everything except his own discomfort. He catalogs Dominic too. The way the man sits, relaxed but not casual, one hand resting on the table, the other curved around his glass. The tailoring of his suit, precise enough that Khari can see the slight asymmetry in his shoulders. An old injury, maybe. Something that happened before wealth could prevent such things. I grew up in the business, Khari says. I know our vendor relationships, our shipping routes, the clients who pay on time and the ones who need 3 reminders. Operational knowledge. Dominic takes a sip. Useful. But you didn't answer my question. Khari's throat tightens. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Why you? Why send the son who left the family business 3 years ago to work in a warehouse? Dominic's voice stays level, almost bored. Why send the Omega who dated Riven and couldn't make it stick? The air leaves Khari's lungs. Someone laughs too loud at the bar. Glass clinks against marble. A server's heel clicks past in perfect 3/4 time. The restaurant, Luminera, where reservations require 6 weeks' notice and connections Khari's family doesn't have, continues around them like nothing happened. Then the rhythm breaks. The door opens. Khari knows that walk before he looks up. The slight drag of the left foot from a college basketball injury that ended a semi-professional career. The compensating swagger that tries to hide it, turns it into confidence instead of weakness. He knows it the way burn victims know the smell of smoke. The way drowning victims know the weight of water. Riven 6'3" of designer suits and controlled violence. Khari's ex. The man who still has keys to his father's financial throat even though Khari changed the locks on his apartment 8 months ago. Khari's jaw locks. His shoulders pull inward by muscle memory, making himself smaller, less noticeable, harder to hit. Riven crosses the restaurant like he owns the oxygen, and maybe he does. His family's law firm structured the contracts that brought Khari here tonight. The ones with his name buried in Section 12, subsection D. Behavioral guarantor. A phrase that sounds harmless until you translate it. Your family's debt lives or dies by how well you behave in public. Every mistake Khari makes, every argument, every scene, every moment of visible unhappiness becomes a contractual violation. A reason to accelerate payment schedules, to increase interest rates, to remind his father that his son's conduct is a liability. Dominic's eyes flicker toward the approaching figure, but his expression doesn't shift, doesn't harden or soften or show anything at all. He takes another sip of bourbon like a man appears at his table uninvited every Tuesday. Maybe men do. Riven reaches them, stops. The kind of stop that demands acknowledgement, that creates pressure in the silence until someone fills it. Khari doesn't look up. He stares at his water glass instead, counts the ice cubes. 3. One crack down the middle. He focuses on that crack, traces it with his eyes, uses it as an anchor. Baby. Riven's voice drips honey over razor wire. You weren't gonna say hello? Every head in the restaurant turns. Not obviously. Not all at once. Just enough that Khari feels the weight of attention like hands on his skin. The other diners don't stare directly. That would be rude, and people who eat at Luminera pride themselves on discretion. But they watch from the corners of their eyes. They listen while pretending not to. Vultures circling. Khari opens his mouth, closes it, counts to 3. We're in the middle of something, he says quietly. His voice comes out steadier than he expected. Small victory. Yeah? Riven leans down, one hand bracing against the table. His cologne? Tom Ford Noir. The same one he's worn since college. Floods Khari's senses. Familiar and suffocating. In the middle of forgetting where you came from? Who pulled your family out of bankruptcy the first time? The first time. Like it's a favor Riven did instead of a trap he set. Dominic sets his glass down. Still says nothing. But something about his silence feels intentional now. Weighted. Like he's collecting information, cataloging details the way Khari catalogs pheromones. I'm working, Khari whispers. Working. Riven laughs. But there's no humor in it. Just edges. That what you call this? Sitting pretty for the next checkbook? Moving from one alpha to another like you're collecting trading cards. Khari's throat tightens. His hands curl into fists beneath the table where no one can see them shake. He digs his nails into his palms. For small crescents of pain that ground him, remind him his body still belongs to him even when everything else feels borrowed. You need to leave, Khari says. I need to leave? Riven straightens. I need to. The slap comes fast. Not hard enough to knock Khari sideways. Just enough to snap his head to the left. Enough to print Riven's palm across his cheekbone in a hot, spreading sting. The sound cracks through the restaurant like a gunshot. Sharp. Final. The restaurant goes silent. Not the quiet of people pretending not to notice. The silence of held breath. Of witnesses. Khari's body reacts before his mind does. Shoulders hunching, breath catching, eyes dropping to the tablecloth. White linen. Egyptian cotton, probably. Thread count so high it feels like silk under his hands when he grabs the edge to steady himself. Apologize. The word forms on his tongue like a reflex. Like all the times before when sorry was the fastest way to make it stop. When sorry meant the difference between one slap and 3. Between raised voices and raised fists. Between sleeping in his own bed and sleeping in his car. But he doesn't say it. Something stops him. Maybe it's the silence, so complete he can hear his own heartbeat. Maybe it's the fact that Dominic Ashford is watching, and apologizing for being hit feels like admitting he deserved it. He touches his face instead. Feels the heat. Feels the exact outline of Riven's palm branded into his skin. Feels every eye in the room cataloging his humiliation. adding it to their mental files of gossip to share over brunch. Across the table, Dominic Ashford moves for the first time. He adjusts his cuff. Left wrist. 2 fingers, thumb and forefinger, catching the fabric and pulling it exactly 1/4 inch down his wrist. Slow and deliberate. The motion takes maybe 3 seconds. Might mean nothing. Except, the server closest to their table freezes mid-step. The bartender's hand stills on a cocktail shaker. Even the sommelier, a thin man in his 60s who's probably seen everything money can buy, stops breathing. Khari doesn't understand why. Doesn't understand what a cuff adjustment means in this world he doesn't belong to. But everyone else does. Dominic stands. Not rushed. Not angry. Just inevitable. Like a door closing. Like gravity. Like something that was always going to happen and the universe is just now catching up. He's not as tall as Riven, maybe 6'1" to Riven's 6'3", but he seems larger somehow. Takes up more space. Or maybe he takes up the right amount of space and everyone else shrinks. He looks at Riven the way someone looks at a stain. At something that shouldn't be there. Something that needs removing. "You've mistaken the room," Dominic says softly. For words. Barely above a whisper. But they land like cement. The temperature drops 10 degrees. Riven's face does something complicated. Starts to smile. Can't quite manage it. Settles on something between defiance and calculation. Khari sits frozen. His cheek throbs. His hands shake. His brain tries to process what just happened and keeps stalling on the same question. What did Dominic just do? Would you stay silent? Or would you speak up? Drop your answer below. Riven's smile doesn't fade, it calcifies. Turns into something sharp enough to cut. The kind of smile that used to make Khari apologize for things that weren't his fault. For wearing the wrong shirt. For talking to the wrong people. For existing in ways that required management. Mistaken? He laughs, but it sounds hollow now. Echoes wrong in the silence. This is my city, Ashford. My contracts. My. Leave. One word. No volume behind it. Dominic doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't move closer. Doesn't do anything except stand there in his $15,000 suit with his hands loose at his sides. But the word carries weight. Physics. Like it's pulling Riven backward through sheer gravitational force. Khari watches from his chair. Hand still pressed to his burning cheek. He should stand. Should leave. Should do something besides sit here like a spectator at his own humiliation. But he can't move. Riven's jaw works. His fingers twitch like they want to form fists but can't quite commit. He's calculating. Khari can see it in the micro-movements of his eyes. Measuring Dominic. Measuring the room. Measuring the cost of whatever he's about to do next. You don't know who you're protecting, Riven says finally. Voice lower now. Meant for Dominic's ears. But Khari hears it anyway. He's not some innocent victim. He's a liar. A manipulator. He'll smile at you and take everything you give him and then... I didn't ask for your character assessment. Dominic's voice hasn't changed. Still quiet. Still lethal. I asked you to leave. Something flickers across Riven's face then. Not fear exactly. Recognition maybe. The kind that comes when you realize you've miscalculated badly. When you've walked into a room expecting one kind of power and found another. He looks at Khari. Really looks like he's searching for something. An apology maybe. An admission that this dinner was betrayal. Some sign of the person who used to shrink under that exact stare. Khari stares at the wine stain spreading across white linen instead. Watches it bloom dark and irreversible. Red wine on white fabric. There's a metaphor there somewhere, but his brain is too fuzzy to find it. His cheek pulses with each heartbeat. He can feel it swelling already. By tomorrow there'll be a bruise. Perfect outline of Riven's hand. Evidence he'll have to explain to Amara. To his father. To the guys at the warehouse who'll ask what happened with careful voices because they know better than to push. This isn't over, Riven says finally. You think you can just... It is. Dominic's voice hasn't changed pitch. Hasn't gained heat or lost control. You're embarrassing yourself. The words land like a slap of their own. Riven's face flushes. His hands curl into fists and Khari's body tenses automatically, anticipating, reading the signs. 8 months of learning Riven's tells makes it instinct, but the punch doesn't come. Riven takes a step back instead. Then another. His eyes never leave Dominic's face. "Enjoy your meal," Riven says, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near desperate. "Khari knows how to reach me when this little arrangement falls through. And it will fall through. Because men like you don't help people like him without expecting payment." He walks toward the exit. Not quite running. Close enough that his pride takes damage with each step. The door closes behind him with a soft click that sounds too quiet for everything it means. The restaurant exhales. The collective held breath releases in a wave of resumed conversations. Silverware clinks against porcelain again. The sommelier pours wine like nothing happened. The server who froze mid-step completes her journey to the kitchen. Life continues, but Khari still can't move. His cheek throbs in time with his pulse. The reflex to apologize sits in his throat like gravel. Solid and choking. He swallows it down, forces it back, presses his tongue to the roof of his mouth and counts backward from 10. Dominic sits back down, straightens his napkin with the same careful precision he probably uses for everything. Takes a sip of bourbon. "You flinched," he says. Khari blinks, looks up for the first time since the slap. Dominic is watching him with an expression Khari can't read. Not pity, not disgust. Something analytical, like Khari is a puzzle he's trying to solve. "What? Before he touched you?" Dominic watches him over the rim of his glass. "You flinched, like you knew it was coming." It's not a question. It's an observation. The kind that strips away pretense and leaves nothing but truth bleeding on the table. Khari's hands shake. He presses them flat against his thighs under the table where no one can see, where they can't betray him. "I should go," he whispers. His voice comes out rough, damaged. "Should you? This was a mistake. I shouldn't have. My family's situation isn't your problem. I'll figure something else out." "Will you?" Still not a question. Just certainty that Khari won't figure anything out. That there is nothing to figure out. That the contracts binding his family were designed to be inescapable. Khari stands. His chair scrapes loud enough to draw glances from nearby tables. He needs air. Needs space. Needs to be anywhere except under Dominic Ashford's dissecting stare. His legs feel unsteady. His cheek feels like it's on fire. His hands won't stop shaking no matter how hard he clenches them. "Thank you for your time," Khari says. Formal, distant, safe. The kind of thing you say to end conversations that should never have started. He makes it 3 steps before Dominic speaks again. "Sit down." Khari stops. Every instinct screams at him to keep walking. To push through the heavy door and out into the cold night air and away from this restaurant and this man and this entire impossible situation. But his body knows the weight of command even when it's wrapped in silk. His body learned young to obey. "Please," Dominic adds, softer, like the word costs him something. Khari turns. Dominic hasn't moved, but something in his posture has shifted. Less predator, more curious. Like he's genuinely interested in what Khari will do next instead of already knowing. "I don't do charity," Dominic says. "And I don't save people who don't want saving. But I do pay attention to interesting problems. I'm not a problem." The words come out sharper than Khari intended. "No." Dominic sets his glass down, studies it like it holds secrets. "You're a symptom, and symptoms always point somewhere worth looking." Khari's chest tightens. He doesn't know if he's being insulted or studied or something worse. Something that requires words he doesn't have. The restaurant continues around them. A couple at the next table argues quietly about whether to order dessert. 3 tables over, someone celebrates a birthday. Normal people having normal dinners in a normal restaurant where normal violence doesn't happen. Except it did happen. Khari's cheek still burns as proof. "If you want this meeting to end here," Dominic says quietly, "it ends. You walk out that door and I forget we ever sat across from each other. No obligations. No strings. Your family's debt stays your family's problem. The offer hangs in air thick with alpha pheromones and expensive wine. Khari looks at the door. 15 feet. 20 steps maybe. Freedom. But free to what? Another meeting with another alpha who'll see him as leverage? Another contract with his name buried in the fine print? Another 8 months of measuring his words and cataloging his mistakes and waiting for the next slap? But if you sit back down, Dominic continues, his voice dropping lower, I'm going to ask you questions you won't want to answer, and you're going to tell me the truth. Because lies bore me, and I think you're tired of carrying them. Khari's pulse hammers in his ears. His cheek throbs. His hands shake. He sits. The chair feels different this time, like commitment instead of obligation. Dominic nods once, signals the server, a young woman with her hair in a tight bun who appears instantly professionally invisible. Another water for my guest, Dominic says, and remove the wine. Bring him tea instead. Something calming. The server nods and disappears. Khari opens his mouth to protest. He didn't ask for tea. Doesn't need calming like he's some fragile thing that might shatter. But Dominic speaks first. Tell me about the behavioral guarantor clause, he says. Khari's blood runs cold. How did you know? The question dies unspoken because the answer is obvious. Men like Dominic Ashford don't walk into meetings blind. They know everything before they sit down. The meeting is just confirmation. It's standard, Khari says carefully, each word chosen like stepping through a minefield. For high-risk contracts. It's extortion. Dominic's eyes don't leave his face. Don't blink. Dressed in legal terminology. The tea arrives. Chamomile from the smell. The server sets it down with practiced silence and vanishes again. Khari wraps his hands around the cup. Lets the heat seep into his palms. It burns slightly, but he doesn't pull away. What would you do in Khari's position? Trust a stranger or walk away? The server places a glass of water in front of Khari. He doesn't remember asking for it. Doesn't remember needing it until his throat closes around the word extortion. The tea sits untouched. Still too hot. Or maybe Khari just can't make his hands steady enough to lift it without spilling. Dominic leans back in his chair. Relaxed, patient, like they have all night. Maybe they do. Maybe time moves differently for men who own it. Who can make restaurants hold tables and servers disappear and entire evenings bend to their will. I'm not a lawyer, Khari says finally. The words feel inadequate, like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. Neither am I. Dominic's mouth curves slightly. Not quite a smile. More like the ghost of one. But I employ 12 of them. Good ones. The kind who can read a contract and see what it doesn't say. The implication settles over Khari like weight. Dominic already knows. Has probably known since before this dinner. Since before Amara made the call that led to the invitation. Since before Khari walked through Luminara's heavy doors. This whole evening has been a test he didn't know he was taking. Khari wraps both hands around the water glass. The cold grounds him. Gives him something to focus on besides the way Dominic watches him like he's reading a language Khari doesn't know he's speaking. His cheek still throbs. He can feel it swelling. By tomorrow it'll be purple. By next week it'll fade to yellow-green. By the week after that it'll be gone like it never happened. Except it did happen. And everyone saw. My family needed capital, Khari says. Keeps his voice flat. Factual. Like he's reciting a grocery list instead of excavating the ruins of his life. Riven's firm structured a bridge loan. Standard terms. Reasonable interest. And Section 12? Khari's fingers tighten on the glass. Ice cubes shift. Water sloshes against the sides but doesn't spill. If I... He stops. Starts again. Forces the words out like pulling teeth. If my public behavior reflects poorly on the firm's reputation, they can accelerate the payment schedule. Increase interest rates. It's just a protection clause. Protection. Dominic repeats the word like he's tasting it. Finding it rotten. For whom? Khari doesn't answer. Can't answer. Because the truth is it protects no one except the people who wrote it. It's a leash disguised as a contract. A cage with invisible bars. A couple 3 tables over laughs at something. The sound feels obscene. Wrong. Like laughing in a graveyard. Like joy is somehow offensive when Khari's life is disassembling in real time over chamomile tea and cold water. You know what I do, Dominic says. It's not a question, but Khari nods anyway. Everyone knows what Dominic Ashford does. Waste management, the legitimate paperwork says. Import-export logistics. Consulting services that never quite specify what kind of consulting. But waste is a flexible term when you own enough of it. And everyone knows the real business happens in the spaces between words. In handshake agreements and favors owed and problems that disappear without police reports. People think power is about violence. Dominic continues. His voice stays level. Almost educational. Like he's teaching a class Khari didn't sign up for. Noise. Spectacle. Making examples. But that's just theater for people who don't understand structure. He picks up his bourbon. Swirls it. Watches the liquid catch light. Real power is architecture, Dominic says. It's knowing which clauses bind and which ones strangle. It's understanding that fear works best when it's built into the foundation. When people police themselves because they've internalized the consequences. Khari's pulse hammers in his wrists. He should leave. This conversation is going somewhere he can't follow back from. Somewhere that changes things. But he can't move. Why are you telling me this? Khari asks. His voice comes out smaller than he intended. Because you flinched before he touched you. Dominic's voice drops lower. Intimate. Like they're sharing secrets instead of sitting in a public restaurant surrounded by witnesses. That kind of reflex takes time to build. Repetition. Conditioning. And I want to know what you're protecting him from. I'm not. You are. Simple. Certain. Like it's a fact instead of an accusation. You apologized without words. Shrank without being told to. Made yourself smaller because making yourself smaller is how you survive. That's not weakness. That's training. The word hits Khari like a second slap. Training. Like he's a dog. Like all those months with Riven were obedience school. Sit. Stay. Be good. Don't embarrass me. Don't talk back. Don't question. Don't exist too loudly or take up too much space or want things that inconvenience me. He never, Khari stops. Because that's a lie and they both know it. Dominic waits. Doesn't push. Just sits there with infinite patience while Khari's defenses crumble like wet sand. It wasn't always bad, Khari says quietly. The admission feels like betrayal. He could be good, generous. He paid for my sister's surgery when insurance wouldn't cover it. Introduced my father to clients who actually paid on time. He'd show up at my apartment at midnight with food from my favorite restaurant because he knew I'd forgotten to eat. The memories taste bitter now. Tainted by everything that came after. Khari's voice cracks. He clears his throat. Tries again. He required things in return. Required gratitude, Dominic says. Khari looks up sharply. How did you? Because that's how it works. Dominic's expression hasn't changed. But something in his eyes has. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Generosity becomes debt. Kindness becomes obligation. And before you realize it's happening, you're paying interest on gifts you never asked for. The words land like keys unlocking doors Khari didn't know he'd closed. His hands shake. He presses them flat against his thighs under the table. Counts his breaths. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. The rhythm his therapist taught him before appointments got too expensive. I'm not rescuing you, Dominic says. I want that clear. I don't do white knight routines. But I am curious about the legal structure keeping you in place. And I have resources that make satisfying curiosity relatively simple. Why? The question comes out harder than Khari intended. Sharper. Why do you care about some Omega's bad relationship and his family's debt? Because Riven Cade's firm represents people I don't like, Dominic says. And because you're interesting. Interesting. Khari almost laughs. The sound catches in his throat. That's what you call this? Interesting. You could have apologized, Dominic says. Tilts his head slightly. Studies Khari like a painting that requires proper angle to understand. Smoothed it over. Made excuses for him slapping you in public. Blamed yourself. That's what people expect. What people are trained to do. Trained. There's that word again. But you didn't, Dominic continues. You went silent instead. Refused to make it easier for anyone. That takes more strength than people realize. More than you probably realize. Khari's throat tightens. He doesn't feel strong. He feels tired. Hollowed out. Like someone scraped away everything important and left only the shape of a person. I can walk you to your car, Dominic offers. Not a command this time. An actual offer. Or I can have someone call you a car. Your choice. Choice. The word sounds foreign. Like a language Khari used to speak but forgot. I can walk myself, Khari says. Dominic nods. Pulls a card from his jacket pocket. Heavy cardstock. Embossed. Sets it on the table between them with the same care someone might use handling evidence. If you want this meeting to end here, Dominic repeats his earlier words. It ends. But if you want to know exactly what you signed, and who benefits from keeping you ignorant, call that number. Khari stares at the card. Just a phone number. No name. No title. No company logo. Nothing to suggest what calling it might unleash. He takes it anyway. Slides it into his pocket where it sits like a stone. Stands. Dominic stands too. Formal. Almost courteous. Thank you for the water, Khari says. Because his mother raised him with manners even when nothing else made sense. Even when the world was ending, you said please and thank you. Khari. His name sounds different in Dominic's voice. Deliberate. Like Dominic is tasting it. Learning its shape. Khari stops halfway to standing. Do you have a copy of your family's contract? Dominic asks. No. Riven kept all the paperwork. Of course he did. Dominic's jaw tightens. Just slightly. A crack in his control. Request 1 from the county clerk. This public record. They can't legally refuse you. Khari nods. Doesn't trust his voice. He walks toward the exit on legs that feel borrowed. Each step requires conscious thought. Left foot. Right foot. Don't stumble. Don't run. Don't give them anything else to talk about. Pushes through the heavy door into cold night air that tastes like freedom and terror in equal measure. Behind him, through the glass, he can see Dominic returning to his table, picking up his bourbon. A man who adjusted his cuff and changed everything. What's buried in those contracts that has Dominic Ashford so interested? The county clerk's office smells like old paper and fluorescent anxiety. Like decades of documentation slowly decomposing in filing cabinets that should have been replaced during the previous administration. Khari stands at the counter filling out Form 47B. Request for contract documentation. His handwriting shakes on the line marked reason for request. The pen is cheap, probably ordered in bulk from the lowest bidder. Blue ink that skips every third letter. He writes, personal records. Erases it. The eraser leaves pink smears. Writes instead, business verification. That sounds more official. Less desperate. The clerk. A black woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a beaded chain and nails painted the color of red wine. Takes the form without looking up. Her fingers fly across the keyboard with the speed of someone who's been typing the same information for 20 years. Types something. Frowns at her screen. The frown deepens. This'll take 3 to 5 business days, she says. I can wait, Khari says. He has the day off from the warehouse. Has nothing but time. No, baby. We have to mail it. It's flagged. Khari's stomach drops. The fluorescent lights suddenly seem too bright. The room too small. Flagged. Means there's a legal hold or privacy restriction. Usually happens with sensitive business agreements. She looks at him over her glasses. Really looks. The kind of look that sees past the surface. You sure you're authorized to request this? It has my name on it. She doesn't sound convinced, but she processes the request anyway. Her nails click against the keys. Address on file still current? Khari gives her his sister Amara's address. The apartment he's been crashing in since leaving Riven became less optional and more survival. Studio apartment in Crown Heights with paper-thin walls and a radiator that clanks like it's trying to communicate in Morse code. Should arrive within the week, the clerk says. Stamp something. File something else. The bureaucracy of his life reduced to forms and folders. If it doesn't, call this number. She hands him a slip of paper with a phone number that's been photocopied so many times it's barely legible. For days later, a manila envelope arrives. Amara brings it to him while he's washing dishes in her tiny kitchen. She's still in her scrubs from the hospital. 12-hour shift in the ICU leaves her looking like she's made of coffee and determination and nothing else. Her scrubs have small cartoon bears on them. Pediatric ICU. The bears smile despite everything. This came for you, she says. Looks official. Official is an understatement. The envelope is thick, heavy, the kind of weight that means complications. Khari dries his hands on a dish towel that's seen better days. Takes the envelope. His name is typed across the front in serif font that probably costs extra. The kind of font that says we take ourselves very seriously. He opens it standing up. Can't make himself sit. Some part of him knows that sitting means accepting something he's not ready for. The contract is 63 pages. 63 pages of legal terminology and clauses and subclauses and definitions of terms that require other definitions. The kind of document that makes you need a lawyer to understand the document that explains why you need a lawyer. Taiwo and Sons Import Company appears on page 1 in bold lettering. His father's signature on page 2. Adeyemi Taiwo in the careful cursive of someone who learned to write in another country. His own name doesn't show up until page 47. Khari flips through. His hands leave fingerprints on the pages. Page 15. Interest rate structures. Page 23. Default conditions. Page 31. Arbitration clauses. Page 47. Section 12. Behavioral compliance protocols. Subsection D. Guarantor obligations. The words swim. Khari blinks. Focuses. In the event that Khari Taiwo, hereinafter guarantor, engages in public conduct deemed detrimental to the reputation of Cade and Morrison Legal Group or its affiliated partners, the following remedies may be enacted at the sole discretion of the lender. The list of remedies takes 2 full pages. Accelerated payment schedules. Penalty interest rates that increase by 3% per incident. Immediate seizure of collateral assets including but not limited to company vehicles, warehouse inventory, accounts receivable, intellectual property. All triggered by public conduct deemed detrimental. No definition of detrimental. No appeals process. No protection. No recourse. Just the sole discretion of the lender. Riven's discretion. Khari reads it 3 times. His hands stop shaking somewhere around the second reading and settle into something colder. Clearer. Rage maybe. Or recognition. This is what 8 months felt like, reduced to legal terms. Every argument was a potential violation. Every public appearance a risk. Every moment of visible unhappiness a contractual breach. He'd thought he was being careful. Thought he was protecting his family. He was just making it easier for Riven to tighten the noose. What is it? Amara asks. She's been watching him read. Probably seeing the color drain from his face. The way his jaw clenches. Proof, Khari says quietly. He pulls out his phone. Finds the card Dominic gave him. It's been living in his wallet for 4 days like a grenade he's afraid to pull the pin on. Heavy cardstock that's gotten soft from body heat and friction. He calls. 2 rings. Yes. Dominic's voice. No greeting. No pleasantries. Just acknowledgement that someone called and he's answering. In the background, Khari can hear traffic. Dominic is outside somewhere. Walking maybe. Living a life that continues regardless of whether Khari calls. I got the contract, Khari says. Silence. Then, and. You were right. About all of it. I usually am. No arrogance in the statement. Just fact. Can you send me a copy? Khari hesitates. Sending this feels like stepping off a cliff. Like crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. But he's been falling anyway. At least this way he might land somewhere intentional. I'll photograph it, Khari says. Send it to the number I'm texting you. Not this one. The line goes dead. 30 seconds later a new number appears. Just digits. No name. No context. Khari photographs all 63 pages. Takes 20 minutes. His phone keeps losing focus. He has to steady his hands against the kitchen counter. Has to get the lighting right. Has to make sure every word is legible. Sends them in 6 separate messages because his phone won't handle the file size. Each message takes a minute to send on Amara's cheap Wi-Fi. His phone rings again. Different number. Not the one he called. Not the one that texted. A third number. How many phones does Dominic Ashford have? Meet me tomorrow, Dominic says when Khari answers. No greeting. 2 p.m. I'll text you the address. What are you going to do? Personally? Nothing. Dominic sounds almost amused. Like this is entertaining instead of terrifying. But I know people who find poorly structured contracts offensive. I don't want violence. Neither do I. It's inefficient. A pause. Traffic sounds fade. A door closes. Dominic has gone inside somewhere. Do you know what firm Riven's company uses for regulatory compliance? No. You will. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. He hangs up. Khari stands in his sister's kitchen holding a phone that feels heavier than it should. Amara watches him with the expression she gets when patients crash. Focused, calculating, already 3 steps ahead of the crisis. Who was that? She asks. Someone who pays attention, Khari says. The next day Khari takes the subway to an address in Lower Manhattan. Not a restaurant this time. An office building with security that checks IDs and visitor logs and probably runs background checks in the 30 seconds it takes to print a visitor badge. The lobby has marble floors that echo. Abstract art on the walls that costs more than Khari makes in a year. Plants that someone is paid to keep alive. 23rd floor. Corner office. Windows overlooking the river. Dominic sits behind a desk that probably costs more than Khari's car. Maybe more than Khari's car and Amara's car combined. Dark wood that's been polished to mirror finish. Not a single paper on its surface. Just a tablet and a phone and a coffee cup that's probably empty. He's reading something on the tablet. Doesn't look up when Khari enters. Sit, Dominic says. Khari sits. The chair is leather. Real leather, not the fake stuff. Creaks slightly under his weight. Cade and Morrison uses precision compliance solutions for their quarterly audits. Dominic says, still reading. His eyes move across the screen. PCS has a reputation for being thorough, almost aggressive in their attention to regulatory detail. Okay, Khari says slowly, not sure where this is going. They also respond to anonymous complaints, especially complaints that suggest potential conflicts of interest between a legal firm and its lending practices. Khari's pulse quickens. You're going to report them? I'm not going to do anything. Dominic sets the tablet down. Looks at Khari directly for the first time since he entered. But hypothetically, if someone were to file a complaint alleging that a legal firm used contract terms to financially coerce a client's family member into a relationship, that would trigger a mandatory investigation. That's not what happened, isn't it? Dominic's gaze doesn't waver, doesn't blink. Section 12D ties your family's financial survival to your behavior. Riven controlled what constituted acceptable behavior. You stayed with him for 8 months after you wanted to leave. What would you call that? Khari's mouth goes dry. He wants to argue, wants to say it was more complicated than that. That there were good days. That he stayed because he wanted to, not because he had to. But that's a lie. He stayed because leaving meant consequences he couldn't afford. Dominic stands, walks to the window, looks out at the city spread below like a kingdom. I'm not asking you to do anything, Dominic says. But you should know. It's not Riven you need to be afraid of. Then who? Dominic turns. His expression is unreadable. The people who taught him that this kind of contract was acceptable in the first place. Who's really pulling the strings behind Riven's power? 3 weeks pass. 3 weeks of normal. Or what passes for normal when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. When you're cataloging every sound for footsteps. Every phone call for threats. Khari works his shifts at the packaging warehouse in Red Hook. 10-hour days moving boxes that all weigh exactly 43 pounds. The supervisor, a Dominican guy named Carlos who doesn't ask questions, lets Khari take extra shifts when the bruise on his face fades from purple to yellow-green. Comes home to Amara's apartment. Eats leftovers from whatever she brought home from the hospital cafeteria. Falls asleep on her couch watching Netflix shows he's seen 3 times because familiar is easier than new. Tries not to check the news. He fails. Week 1. A trade publication mentions Precision Compliance Solutions conducting routine audits of several Manhattan legal firms. The article is 3 paragraphs buried on page 7. Cade and Morrison is listed third, between 2 firms Khari's never heard of. He reads it on his phone during his lunch break, sitting on a concrete loading dock eating a sandwich that tastes like cardboard and stress. Carlos walks by, stops, looks at Khari's phone screen. "You into finance news now?" he asks. "Something like that," Khari says. Carlos shrugs, moves on, doesn't push. That's why Khari likes working here. Nobody pushes. Week 2, his father gets a call. Khari Taiwo calls Khari at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Khari is half asleep on Amara's couch. The phone rings 6 times before he answers. The bank called, his father says. No greeting. His accent gets thicker when he's stressed, Nigerian English with Yoruba underneath. They want to discuss adjusted terms on the loan. Possible restructuring. Khari sits up, suddenly wide awake. What kind of restructuring? They wouldn't say over the phone. But Khari, his father pauses. In the background, Khari can hear the TV. His father is watching Nigerian news channels again. Sign of insomnia. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Khari says. It's not a lie. He didn't do anything. He just handed a loaded gun to someone who knows how to aim. The bank said there's an investigation into the lending practices. They're freezing all penalties until it's resolved. Khari's heart kicks against his ribs. How long? They didn't say. But this is good, yes? This gives us time. Yeah, Dad. This is good. They talk for 10 more minutes. His father asks about work. About whether Khari is eating enough. About whether he's talked to his mother. They divorced when Khari was 12, but she still calls every Sunday. Normal parent things. Like the world isn't reshaping itself in the dark. Week 3, nothing. The silence is worse than chaos. Khari keeps waiting for retaliation. For Riven to show up at the warehouse. For lawyers to appear with new paperwork. For something to break. Instead, nothing. The absence of disaster feels like holding your breath underwater. Like waiting for a bomb to go off. Like standing in the eye of a hurricane and knowing the walls are just temporary. He stops calling Dominic's number. Tells himself it's better this way. Cleaner. Whatever the man set in motion is happening in rooms Khari can't access. And maybe that's safer. Maybe Khari should just let powerful men fight each other and stay out of the blast radius. But on Thursday of week 3, his phone rings at 9 p.m. Unknown number. Khari stares at it. Counts the rings. 1, 2, 3. Amara looks up from her medical journal. "You gonna answer that?" 4, 5. He answers. "Hello." Heavy breathing. Background noise that suggests a crowd. Music. Glass clinking. Then, "You think you're smart?" Riven's voice. Tight. Vibrating with controlled rage that's barely controlled anymore. Khari's throat closes. "I don't know what. Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you." The background noise suggests Riven's somewhere public. A bar maybe. Somewhere with people and witnesses, and still he's calling. Still he can't help himself. Someone's tearing apart my firm's compliance records. Regulatory auditors showing up unannounced. Clients getting nervous. Partners asking questions I can't answer. Khari doesn't say anything. "And it all started after you had your little dinner date with Dominic Ashford." Riven continues. His words slur slightly. "He's drunk. We're getting there. You think I don't know what you did?" What you told him? I didn't. You did. Riven's laugh is ugly. Sharp. Like broken glass. You ran crying to the biggest predator you could find and pointed him at me. You're making a mistake, baby. Ashford's not your savior. He's a predator who found a new toy. And when he's done playing, you'll wish you'd stayed where you belonged. The line goes dead. Khari sits in the dark holding his phone. His hands don't shake this time. Something else has settled into his chest. Not fear exactly. Clarity maybe. Or anger. 8 months of apologizing. Of shrinking. Of making himself small and quiet and easy to manage. 8 months of believing that if he just tried harder, loved better, behaved correctly, things would improve. 8 months of being wrong. He pulls up Dominic's number. The original one. Texts. Riven called. Says someone's dismantling him. 3 dots appear immediately. Like Dominic was waiting. Then good. Khari stares at the response. 1 word. No elaboration. No comfort. Just simple satisfaction. He types. You said you weren't doing anything. The reply comes faster. I'm not. I'm watching. There's a difference. Khari wants to argue. Wants to say that's semantics. That watching while things happen is still making things happen. But he doesn't. Another message appears. Dinner tomorrow. Same place. 7 p.m. Your choice. Khari reads it twice. Your choice. Like those words mean something. Like they're not just pretty sounds. He responds. I'll be there. Amara watches him from across the room. She's closed her medical journal. Given up pretending to read. What's happening? She asks. I don't know, Khari says honestly. But I think something is ending. Good ending or bad ending? Khari thinks about Riven's voice on the phone. About Dominic's single-word response. About 3 weeks of silence followed by noise. I don't know yet, he says. But for the first time in 8 months, he's choosing to find out. What game is Dominic Ashford really playing? The restaurant is different this time. No chandeliers. No marble floors that announce footsteps like warnings. This place sits tucked between a bookstore and a coffee roaster in Brooklyn. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, tables close enough that privacy requires lowered voices. Khari arrives 10 minutes early. Dominic is already there. He sits at a corner table with his back to the wall, wearing a charcoal sweater instead of a suit. It throws Khari off balance, seeing him look almost normal. Almost reachable. You came, Dominic says as Khari sits. You said it was my choice. It is. Dominic slides a menu across the table. Always will be. The server comes by. Khari orders coffee he doesn't want. Dominic asks for whiskey neat, and the server doesn't blink at the 7 p.m. request. They sit in silence until the drinks arrive. Khari wraps his hands around the mug, lets the heat seep into his palms. Outside the window, Brooklyn moves past in layers. Commuters rushing home, couples walking dogs, delivery bikes weaving through traffic. Normal life, the kind Khari used to think he'd have. My father rebuilt an empire through leverage, Dominic says suddenly. Not violence. Leverage. Khari looks up. Dominic is staring at his whiskey like it holds answers. He died when I was 23, Dominic continues. Left me a network of people who expected me to be him. Louder, meaner, more willing to break things. But you're not, Khari says quietly. No. Dominic takes a sip. I'm worse, because I learned that fear doesn't require spectacle. It requires patience. You don't destroy someone all at once. You dismantle the structures keeping them upright, piece by piece, until they collapse under their own weight. The words should terrify Khari. Instead, they settle into his chest like recognition. Why are you telling me this? Khari asks. Because you asked me what I was doing to Riven. Dominic meets his eyes. And the answer is nothing. I made 3 phone calls. Filed 2 anonymous compliance complaints. Mentioned his firm's lending practices to people whose job it is to notice irregularities. That's all. That's all. The rest. Dominic shrugs. That's just consequences catching up. I didn't create them. I just removed the barriers preventing them from arriving. Khari's coffee has gone cold. He drinks it anyway. You stayed with him, Dominic says. Not a question. An observation. Even after you wanted to leave. Khari's jaw tightens. The contract. Forget the contract. I'm asking about you. Dominic leans forward slightly. What kept you there when the good days stopped outnumbering the bad ones? No one's ever asked Khari that. Not Amara. Not his father. Not even himself, not honestly. Hope, Khari says finally. The word tastes bitter. That if I just endured long enough, he'd go back to being the person I thought he was. The one who paid for my sister's surgery. Who made my dad laugh at business dinners. Who made me feel. He stops. Can't finish. Safe. Dominic offers. Wanted. Khari corrects. Like I mattered beyond what I could provide. Dominic nods slowly. Doesn't interrupt. Doesn't offer platitudes. But those moments got shorter, Khari continues. Farther apart. And I started measuring my days by how long I could go without making him angry. What I could wear. How I could phrase things. Who I could talk to. His throat tightens. I turn myself into something small and quiet because small and quiet things don't get broken as easily. The restaurant buzzes around them. Someone laughs at the bar. A phone rings. Life continues while Khari sits here excavating truths he's buried for months. You confuse endurance with loyalty, Dominic says softly. The words hit like a key turning in a lock Khari didn't know he'd built. What? Staying isn't the same as choosing. Surviving isn't the same as living. Dominic's voice is gentle but unyielding. You think you stayed because you loved him, but love doesn't require you to disappear. Khari's eyes burn. He looks away, focuses on the couple outside walking a golden retriever. Normal. Easy. Uncomplicated. I have a proposal, Dominic says. Khari looks back. Your family's import business, Dominic continues. It's structured poorly. Too dependent on single-source contracts. Too vulnerable to market fluctuations. But the core concept is sound. Your father has relationships. Your sister has business sense. He pauses. You notice things. Details most people miss. I'm not a businessman. Neither was I. I was a 23-year-old who inherited problems and had to learn fast. Dominic pulls out a folder. Sets it on the table. This is a restructuring proposal. Independent financing. Market diversification. New vendor relationships. It makes your family's company viable without external coercion. Khari stares at the folder like it might bite him. Why? He asks. What do you get out of this? Partnership. Dominic's expression doesn't change. Not ownership. Not control. Partnership. I provide capital and market access. You provide operational insight and client relationships. Profits split 60-40 until the initial investment is recouped, then 50-50. That's Khari's brain struggles to process. That's more than fair. It's equitable, Dominic corrects. Fair implies charity. This is business. Khari opens the folder. Pages of financial projections. Market analysis. Risk assessment. Everything professional. Legitimate. Real. I don't understand, Khari says. You don't even know me. I know you flinched before being hit. I know you apologized for someone else's violence. I know you're sitting here instead of running, which means you're braver than you think you are. Dominic's voice drops. And I know that Riven spent 8 months teaching you that your value is conditional. I'm offering to prove him wrong. Khari's hands shake. The folder blurs. What if I fail? He whispers. Then we adjust and try again. That's how business works. Dominic finishes his whiskey. This isn't rescue, Khari. It's investment. In a company with potential and a person who's tired of being underestimated. The server returns. Asks if they want food. Khari hasn't even looked at the menu, but Dominic orders 2 plates of something that sounds Italian and expensive. After the server leaves, Khari makes himself ask the question that's been eating at him since the first dinner. Do you do this often? Find people in bad situations and offer them a way out. No. Dominic's answer is immediate. I find interesting problems. You're the first one who came with a pulse. Despite everything, Khari almost laughs. The sound catches in his throat, comes out as something between a cough and a sob. I need to think about it, Khari says. Good. Dominic nods. People who accept immediately either don't understand the terms or don't value themselves enough to negotiate. Take the folder. Review it. Talk to your family. Talk to a lawyer if you want, one who doesn't work for Riven. And if I say no? Then this was a nice dinner and we part as acquaintances. Dominic's voice is steady. No pressure. No retaliation. No strings. The food arrives. Khari picks at his pasta while Dominic eats with the focused efficiency of someone who views meals as fuel. They talk about small things. The city. Books. The fact that Khari always wanted to learn piano but never had the time. Dominic mentions he plays guitar poorly and keeps trying anyway. Feels normal. Almost easy. When the check comes, Dominic pays before Khari can reach for his wallet. Outside, the November air bites cold. Khari pulls his jacket tighter. I'll walk you to the subway, Dominic offers. They walk 3 blocks in comfortable silence. At the station entrance, Khari stops. Thank you, he says. For dinner. For the proposal. He gestures vaguely. All of it. Don't thank me yet, Dominic says. You haven't decided. I will. Khari clutches the folder against his chest. Decide, soon. Dominic nods, starts to turn away, then stops. Khari. Yeah. Stay because you choose to, Dominic says quietly. Not because you need protection. Not because you owe anyone. Because you want to. The words echo as Khari descends into the subway. He finds a seat, opens the folder again, and starts reading. By the time he reaches Amara's apartment, he's made a decision. He calls Dominic's number. 2 rings. Yes. I want equity terms, Khari says. Not 60-40. Equal partnership from day one, with options to buy you out if the company reaches specific performance benchmarks. Silence. Then something that might be a laugh. Send me your proposed benchmarks, Dominic says. We'll negotiate. What would you risk for a real second chance? Khari spends the next 2 days building a proposal that would make his business professors weep with pride or confusion. He's not sure which. Amara helps, armed with spreadsheets and the ruthless practicality of someone who negotiates hospital budgets for a living. You're seriously countering Dominic Ashford's offer? She asks, scrolling through Khari's projected revenue models. He said to negotiate. He probably expected you to ask for 65%, not full equity partnership with performance buyout clauses. Amara looks at him over her laptop. You know what you're doing? No, Khari admits, but I know what I'm worth. And it's not 40%. He sends the proposal Tuesday morning, gets a response by Tuesday afternoon. Thursday, 3 p.m. My office. Bring your lawyer. Khari doesn't have a lawyer. He borrows one, Amara's friend Jasmine Chen, who does contract law for nonprofits and agrees to review the documents for the cost of lunch and good gossip. Thursday comes cold and bright. Khari takes the subway to Lower Manhattan wearing the one suit he owns that doesn't smell like warehouse dust. Jasmine meets him in the lobby, carrying a messenger bag that looks older than both of them. You ready? She asks. No. Good. Means you're paying attention. They ride the elevator to the 23rd floor. The receptionist, a South Asian man with perfect posture and a Bluetooth earpiece, escorts them to the corner office. Dominic sits behind his desk with 2 other people. A woman in her 40s with silver-streaked locks and the expression of someone who doesn't suffer fools. A younger man, maybe 30, taking notes on a tablet. Khari Taiwo, Dominic says. Jasmine Chen. This is Lorraine Baptiste, my chief financial officer, and Marcus Reed, contracts specialist. Handshakes all around. Professional. Controlled. They sit. Lorraine opens a folder that's somehow thicker than the one Dominic gave Khari. Your counteroffer is aggressive, she says. No preamble. Equal equity with buyout options tied to benchmarks we'd struggle to hit in 3 years, let alone 18 months. The benchmarks are based on industry standards for companies of similar size, Khari says, keeps his voice level. If Taiwo and Sons can't hit them, then equal partnership is fair compensation for the risk I'm taking. Risk? Marcus looks up from his tablet. Mr. Ashford is providing 70% of the operating capital. And I'm providing operational knowledge, client relationships, and the fact that this company has my family's name on it. Khari meets his eyes. If it fails, Mr. Ashford loses money. I lose everything. How is that not risk? Jasmine hides a smile behind her hand. Lorraine and Marcus exchange glances. Dominic has been silent this entire time, watching Khari like he's an equation proving itself. The buyout timeline is unrealistic. Lorraine continues. We'd counteroffer 36 months minimum. 24, Khari says, with quarterly performance reviews. If we're not tracking toward benchmarks by month 12, we renegotiate terms. That's fair, Dominic interrupts, his first word since introductions. It's fair. Lorraine turns to him. Dom, this gives away. Nothing we can't afford to lose. Dominic leans forward. And it ensures the person running day-to-day operations has actual stake in outcomes. That's good business. Marcus types something. Lorraine's jaw tightens, but she nods. Fine, she says. 24 months. Quarterly reviews. Equal equity with buyout options at... She names a figure that makes Khari's stomach drop. It's more money than his family's made in 5 years combined. That's acceptable, Jasmine says before Khari can speak. She's reading something on her own tablet, frowning. But we need clarity on decision-making authority. Section 8 grants Mr. Ashford final approval on vendor contracts over $50,000. That's too low a threshold for operational autonomy. Raise it to $200,000, Khari says. 150, Lorraine counters. 175, and I approve all hiring decisions under director level. Lorraine looks at Dominic. He nods. Done, she says. They spend the next 90 minutes hammering out details. Profit distribution formulas. Dispute resolution procedures. What happens if Khari wants out early versus if Dominic does? By the time Jasmine closes her laptop, Khari's head pounds and his shirt is damp with sweat despite the office's Arctic air conditioning. We'll have revised contracts drafted by Monday, Marcus says. Review period is 72 hours. Then we can schedule signing. 1 week, Jasmine corrects. Standard review is 5 business days minimum. Marcus glances at Dominic, who shrugs. 1 week, Marcus agrees. The meeting ends. Lorraine and Marcus leave first. Jasmine follows, but not before squeezing Khari's shoulder. You did good, she whispers. Don't let them see you sweat. Then it's just Khari and Dominic in the too big office with its river views and uncomfortable silence. You surprised them, Dominic says. I surprised myself. Good. Dominic stands, walks to the window. People who don't surprise themselves aren't paying attention to their own growth. Khari joins him. Together they look out at the city, all steel and glass and relentless motion. This is real, Khari says. Not a question. As real as anything. Dominic's reflection in the window is unreadable. Still afraid. Terrified. Also good. Fear means you understand what's at stake. Dominic turns to face him. But here's what I need you to understand, Khari. This partnership works only if you believe you belong in it. Not because I gave you permission. Because you earned it. Khari's throat tightens. Before he can respond, Dominic's phone buzzes. He glances at it, and something crosses his face. Something cold. What? Khari asks. Riven filed an injunction. Dominic's voice is flat. Claims you're violating the behavioral guarantor clause by entering into business relationships without his firm's approval. The floor tilts. Can he do that? He can file anything. Whether it has merit is different. Dominic is already typing. But it means he knows. About the partnership. About the restructuring. How? Someone talked. Or he's been monitoring your movements. Either way, Dominic looks up. He's going to escalate. Publicly. Khari's hands curl into fists. The reflex to apologize rises like bile, but he swallows it down. Let him, Khari says. Dominic's eyebrow raises. You sure? No, but I'm tired of shrinking. Khari meets his eyes. If he wants a fight, he can have one. In court, in public, wherever. Something shifts in Dominic's expression. Approval maybe, or recognition. There's a business arbitration hearing in 6 days, Dominic says, for the compliance violations against his firm. It's technically unrelated to you, but Riven's lawyer will try to connect them. Claim you manipulated me into targeting him. Did I? No. I targeted him because I don't like predatory lending practices. Dominic's voice is ice. You were just the catalyst. Will I have to testify? Potentially, if you're willing. Khari thinks about Section 12D, about 8 months of measuring his words, about flinching before being touched. I'll do it, he says. It won't be pleasant. He'll try to humiliate you, make you look unstable or opportunistic. I know. Khari's voice doesn't shake. But I have something he doesn't. What's that? The truth. Would you stand up in court against the person who controlled you? The arbitration hearing takes place in a conference room that smells like old coffee and anxiety. No judge's bench. No jury box. Just a long table, 3 arbitrators in business attire, and enough lawyers to fill a small law school. Khari sits between Jasmine and Dominic. Across the table, Riven leans back in his chair like he owns the oxygen. His attorney, a white woman in her 50s named Patricia Holloway, has a smile that could cut diamonds. The lead arbitrator, Judge Miriam Okonkwo, calls the hearing to order at 9 a.m. sharp. This proceeding addresses complaints filed against Cade and Morrison Legal Group regarding alleged conflicts of interest in lending practices, she says. We'll hear opening statements, review evidence, and take testimony as needed. Ms. Holloway, you may begin. Patricia stands, smooths her skirt. Thank you, Your Honor. This hearing is a waste of everyone's time. The complaints against my client are based on misrepresentations made by an individual with a personal vendetta. She gestures toward Khari without looking at him. Mr. Khari Taiwo engaged in a relationship with Mr. Riven Cade. When that relationship ended badly, Mr. Taiwo manipulated a powerful business associate into targeting my client's firm. The so-called compliance violations are routine administrative oversights, now being weaponized for personal revenge. She sits. The arbitrators make notes. Khari's pulse hammers in his ears. Jasmine stands next. Your Honors, the complaints against Cade and Morrison were filed anonymously by multiple parties who identified irregularities in the firm's lending contracts. Mr. Taiwo is not the complainant. He is, however, a victim of the exact practices under investigation. She opens a folder. Specifically, Section 12D of the Taiwo family business loan, which ties debt terms to the personal conduct of a family member who is not the primary borrower. This is financial coercion disguised as legitimate business practice. Patricia laughs. Actually laughs. Your Honor, behavioral compliance clauses are standard in high-risk lending. Not when they target romantic partners of borrowers, Jasmine interrupts. And especially not when the person who structured the loan subsequently entered into a relationship with the individual named in that clause. Riven's jaw tightens. Judge Okonkwo leans forward. Ms. Chun, are you alleging that Mr. Cade structured this contract knowing he would later pursue a relationship with Mr. Taiwo? I'm stating facts, Your Honor. The contract was signed in March 2024. Mr. Cade and Mr. Taiwo began their relationship in April 2024. 1 month later, the room goes silent. Patricia recovers first. Correlation isn't causation, Your Honor. My client met Mr. Taiwo at a business function. Their relationship developed naturally. Did it? Jasmine pulls out another document. Because text messages retrieved from Mr. Taiwo's phone show Mr. Cade explicitly mentioning the contract terms during arguments. Quote, your family needs me. Remember that before you make stupid decisions. She projects the message on the screen. Time-stamped. Verified. Riven's attorney whispers something urgent in his ear. Your Honor, Patricia says tightly. Private relationship disputes have no bearing on. They do when the relationship is structured through financial coercion, Judge Okonkwo says. She looks at Khari. Mr. Taiwo, I'd like to hear from you directly. Can you describe the nature of your relationship with Mr. Cade? Khari stands. His legs feel borrowed. We dated for 8 months, he says, voice steady. At first it was good. He was generous, attentive, made me feel important. And later, Judge Okonkwo prompts. Later, when I wanted space or disagreed with him, he'd bring up the contract. My family's debt. How easily he could make things difficult for them. Khari's hands shake, so he presses them flat against the table. I thought if I just tried harder, he'd go back to being the person I thought he was. But that person didn't exist. He was just a strategy. Your Honor, Patricia interrupts. This is an emotional narrative, not evidence. It's testimony, Judge Okonkwo says. Let him finish. Khari continues. I stayed because leaving felt impossible. Every time I considered it, I'd think about my father losing his business, my sister losing her job helping run it. I thought I was being loyal, but I was just scared. And when did that change? Judge Okonkwo asks. When someone showed me the contract I didn't know I'd signed. Khari looks at Dominic briefly. And when I realized that endurance isn't the same as choice. The arbitrators make notes. Riven stares at him with an expression Khari can't read. Rage maybe, or disbelief that Khari is speaking at all. Patricia stands again. Your Honor, Mr. Taiwo claims he was coerced, yet he's now in a business partnership with Dominic Ashford, a known associate of organized crime. Careful, Dominic says quietly, his first words all hearing. Patricia doesn't stop. Who has obvious personal interest in damaging my client's reputation. This entire proceeding is orchestrated revenge, and Mr. Taiwo is either complicit or being manipulated again. Is that your professional opinion? Jasmine asks, voice sharp. That Mr. Taiwo is incapable of making his own decisions? I'm saying he has a pattern of aligning himself with powerful men who use him for their own ends. The words land like a slap. Khari feels the room's eyes on him, feels the old reflex rising, apologize, shrink, make yourself small. Instead, he stands taller. You're right, Khari says. I did align myself with someone who used me. His name is Riven Cade. He wrote a contract that made my family's survival dependent on my obedience. He dated me knowing I couldn't leave without consequences. And when I finally did leave, he showed up to a business dinner and slapped me in public. Khari pulls out his phone, opens the photo he's kept for weeks. The one Amara took the night after the restaurant. His cheekbone still showing the imprint of Riven's palm. He holds it up. This is what happens when you try to leave someone who thinks he owns you, Khari says. This is what behavioral compliance looks like in practice. The arbitrators lean forward, examining the photo on the projected screen. Riven's face drains of color. Your Honor, Patricia says desperately. That photo proves nothing about the contract terms. It proves motive, Judge Okonkwo says. Her voice has gone cold. It proves a pattern of control. She looks at her fellow arbitrators. They nod. We're going to recess for 1 hour to review the submitted evidence, Judge Okonkwo says. When we return, I want full documentation of all loans structured by Cade and Morrison in the past 3 years. Specifically, any contracts containing behavioral compliance clauses targeting non-borrower family members. Patricia's face goes white. Your Honor, that's hundreds of files. Then you'd better work fast. 1 hour. The gavel falls. People file out. Khari sinks into his chair, suddenly exhausted. Jasmine squeezes his shoulder. You did good, she says. Really good. Dominic says nothing, just watches Riven across the room with an expression that makes Khari's spine straighten. Riven stands, walks over, Patricia tries to stop him, but he shrugs her off. You think this changes anything? Riven says quietly. Only Khari can hear him. You think Ashford actually cares about you? He's using you to get at me. And when he's done. I know, Khari interrupts. He told me. He's using me as a catalyst to investigate your firm's practices. And I'm letting him. Because your firm deserves investigation. Riven's laugh is ugly. You've changed. No, Khari says. I just stopped pretending you were worth shrinking for. Riven's hand twitches. For a second, Khari thinks he might swing. Might hit him again, here in front of lawyers and arbitrators and God. But Dominic stands. Doesn't say anything. Just stands. Riven's hand drops. He walks away. 1 hour later, the arbitrators return. Judge Okonkwo's expression tells Khari everything before she speaks. After reviewing the evidence, we find sufficient grounds to suspend Cade and Morrison's lending license pending full investigation, she says. Additionally, all contracts containing behavioral compliance clauses targeting non-borrowers are hereby voided pending individual review. Patricia starts to object, but Judge Okonkwo raises her hand. Furthermore, we're referring this matter to the State Attorney General for potential criminal investigation into coercive lending practices. The gavel falls. It's over. What happens when justice finally catches up? 3 weeks after the hearing, Khari stands in his father's warehouse watching movers box up files for the transition to new offices. Taiwo and Sons Import Company has a new name now, Taiwo and Ashford Trade Solutions, and a new location in a building that doesn't smell like mold and regret. His father, Adeyemi Taiwo, supervises with the careful attention of a man who's been given a second chance and refuses to waste it. Amara handles logistics, barking orders at movers who keep putting boxes in the wrong trucks. Khari's phone buzzes. Unknown number. He almost doesn't answer, then does. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Riven. Khari asks. You destroyed me. Riven's voice sounds hollow. Wrong. My firm is under investigation. My clients are gone. My reputation is what you built it on, Khari says. I didn't create your predatory contracts. I just stopped pretending they were normal. I loved you. The words should hurt, should make Khari question everything. They don't. No, Khari says gently. You loved control. I was just the easiest target. We could have worked it out. If you hadn't run to Ashford, I didn't run to anyone. I walked toward something better. There's a difference. More silence. I'm sorry, Riven says finally, for hitting you, for the contract, for all of it. Khari closes his eyes. Part of him, the part that spent 8 months making excuses, wants to accept the apology, to say it's okay, to smooth it over, but it's not okay. I hope you mean that, Khari says. I hope you get help. But your apology doesn't undo what happened. It just means you finally understand consequences. Khari. He hangs up, deletes the number, turns back to the warehouse, where his father is arguing with Amara about optimal box stacking configurations and everything is chaotic and normal in his. That evening, Khari meets Dominic at the Brooklyn restaurant where they had dinner weeks ago. Same corner table. Same Edison bulbs. Different Khari. Dominic is already there, reading something on his tablet. He looks up when Khari sits. How was the move? Dominic asks. Loud. Stressful. Perfect. Khari smiles. Amara's already redesigning the office layout. Dad's arguing about paint colors. It's good. And you? Khari pauses. Considers. I'm okay. Actually okay. Not just saying it. Dominic nods. Sets his tablet aside. They order food. Talk about the business. Vendor meetings scheduled for next week. A potential contract with a textile importer from Ghana. Amara's aggressive expansion timeline. Normal. Easy. When the check comes, Khari reaches for it first. Dominic raises an eyebrow. Equal partners, Khari says. Which means I pay sometimes too. Fair enough. Outside, the November air has turned December cold. Khari pulls his coat tighter. Walk you to the subway? Dominic offers. Actually, Khari hesitates. Do you want to get coffee? Real coffee, not business coffee. Something shifts in Dominic's expression. Not quite a smile. Warmer than his usual control. Yeah, Dominic says. I do. They walk to a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Order drinks. Sit by the window watching Brooklyn move past in layers of light and shadow. Can I ask you something? Khari says. Always. That first night, when Riven hit me, you could have done nothing. Could have finished your drink and left. Why didn't you? Dominic is quiet for a long moment. Because I've spent my whole life watching people with power use it to make themselves bigger by making others smaller, he says finally. And I decided a long time ago that if I was going to have power, I'd use it differently. To dismantle people quietly, to remove the structures that let them harm people in the first place. Dominic meets his eyes. Violence is easy. Riven hit you and felt powerful for 30 seconds. But restructuring the systems that allowed him to trap you, that takes work. And it lasts. Khari absorbs this, turns it over in his mind. Thank you, he says. For what? For seeing me as interesting instead of broken. Dominic's expression softens in a way Khari's never seen before. You were never broken, Dominic says quietly. Just trapped in a situation that required you to be smaller than you are. Now you're not. That's all. They sit in comfortable silence, drinking coffee that's too hot and watching the city exist around them. Khari doesn't feel the reflex to apologize anymore. Doesn't feel the need to make himself smaller. He just feels here, present, real. What do you want now? Dominic asks suddenly. Khari looks at him, really looks, at the man who adjusted his cuff and changed everything, who taught him that power doesn't have to mean control, that partnership can be equitable, that choosing yourself isn't the same as running away. I want to build something, Khari says, something that lasts, with someone who sees me as an equal, business or otherwise. Khari's heart kicks against his ribs. Both, maybe, he says carefully. If both is possible. Dominic's smile is small but genuine. Both is possible, he says. What would you choose, safety or possibility? 6 months later, Taiwo and Ashford Trade Solutions has offices on 2 floors, 12 employees, and contracts spanning 4 continents. Khari's business card reads, Chief Operating Officer, in letters that still feel surreal. He arrives at the office early on a Tuesday morning to find Amara already at her desk, headset on, negotiating with a vendor in Lagos. She waves without breaking concentration. Khari makes coffee in the break room they built specifically so Amara would stop drinking gas station sludge. The machine is unnecessarily fancy, Dominic's doing, but Khari has learned to operate it without setting off any alarms. His phone buzzes. Text from Dominic. Running late. Client meeting went long. Start without me. Khari smiles. Texts back. You mean I should do my actual job without waiting for permission? 3 dots appear. Then, exactly. It's almost like you're in charge. The morning passes in meetings and emails and normal corporate chaos. Khari reviews a shipping manifest, approves a vendor contract, argues with Amara about hiring timelines. His father stops by at lunch with jollof rice from the Ghanaian place 3 blocks over. They eat in Khari's office, a real office with windows and a door that closes and a nameplate, and talk about everything except work. Adeyemi mentions he's started dating someone, a woman he met at church who laughs at his terrible jokes. You seem happy, Dad, Khari says. I am. So do you. Adeyemi studies him. It's good. Seeing you like this. Like what? Yourself. Khari doesn't know how to respond to that, so he just nods. Dominic arrives at 3 p.m. carrying architectural plans for potential warehouse expansion. They spread them across the conference table while Amara peppers the architect with questions about load-bearing capacities and climate control. It's professional, efficient. Until Dominic's hand brushes Khari's reaching for the same document, and something electric passes between them that has nothing to do with business. They've been careful, professional. Ever since that coffee shop conversation 6 months ago, they've maintained clear boundaries. Partnership first. Everything else, theoretical. But theory is getting harder to maintain. After the meeting, after Amara leaves and the architect packs up and the office empties, Khari finds Dominic standing at the window overlooking the city. "Hey," Khari says. Dominic turns. "Hey, we did good today. The expansion plans are solid." "They are." Dominic's voice is neutral, but his eyes aren't. Khari crosses the space between them. Not all the way, just close enough that the air thickens. "Can I ask you something?" Khari says. "You always can. When you said both was possible, business and otherwise, did you mean it? Or were you just being kind?" Dominic's expression shifts, something vulnerable breaking through his usual control. "I don't do kind," he says. "I do honest. And honestly, I've been waiting for you to be ready." "Ready for what?" "To choose this. Not because you need protection or financing or someone to fight your battles, but because you want to." Khari's pulse hammers. His palms sweat. This is it. The moment where he decides if safety is enough or if he's brave enough to want more. "I'm terrified," Khari admits. "Good. So am I." "You don't seem terrified." "I'm excellent at hiding it." Dominic's mouth curves slightly. "But you scare me, Khari, because you make me want things I convinced myself I didn't need." "Like what?" "Partnership that isn't just business. Mornings that aren't strategic. Someone who sees me and doesn't flinch." Khari steps closer. Close enough to feel Dominic's warmth. "I don't flinch anymore," Khari says quietly. "Not around you." "I know." Dominic's hand comes up, hesitates near Khari's face. "Can I?" "Yes." The touch is gentle, careful. Dominic's palm cups Khari's jaw, the same place Riven's slap landed months ago. But there's no pressure, no demand, just presence. "Tell me if this is too much," Dominic says. "It's not." "Tell me if you change your mind." "I won't." Dominic's thumb traces Khari's cheekbone. "Tell me what you want." "This," Khari says. "You. Whatever this becomes. It might be complicated. I'm okay with complicated. It might be slow. I don't do fast well. Neither do I anymore." Dominic smiles then, real and unguarded. "Stay because you choose to," he says softly, echoing his words from months ago. "I am," Khari says. "I'm choosing." The kiss, when it comes, is gentle, unhurried. Nothing like the desperate, consuming kisses Khari remembers from before. This is different, equal. Two people meeting in the middle instead of one consuming the other. When they break apart, Khari's hands are steady. His breath is even. He doesn't feel small, doesn't feel trapped. Just here, present, choosing. "What now?" Khari asks. "Now we figure it out," Dominic says. "Together, as partners." "Equal partners?" "Always." Khari looks around the office they built, at the city beyond the windows, at the life he's constructed piece by careful piece. The room is still. Nothing trembles anymore. But Khari doesn't feel small inside it. He feels, finally, improbably, impossibly, like he belongs, like he's home. And home, he's learned, isn't about walls or contracts or someone else's permission. It's about choosing yourself. And then choosing carefully and deliberately to let someone else choose you back. The beginning, not the end. Thanks for watching this story of courage and second chances. If you were inspired by Khari's journey from survival to strength, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Drop a comment below about what part resonated with you most. Your thoughts might inspire someone else who needs to hear them. Remember, choosing yourself is never selfish. It's necessary. See you in the next one.